And welcome in, everybody. It is a Monday edition of Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht here alongside Paul Savage in for Tommy today. Jad Chambers producing. Glad to be here with you as we make our way into the first week of high school football, the first real week of college football, and the bye week now basically between the preseason and regular season for the NFL. Paul, it's crisp in the air this morning. It is feeling a little like fall. At least it is early in the morning with what's on the plate. You ready for some football?
I think I'm ready. It feels like it's been a while, but yes, I am definitely ready. And that little crispness that you spoke about just says it all. It's really time to get down to some football. Friday night football under the lights here in Kansas, and then Saturday a lot of college football going on. Man, I can't wait, Jacob.
We'll both be involved, by the way, in high school football. I am going to help out our Catch It Kansas crew on Friday nights again this fall. I'll jump back in with those guys. And, Paul, you'll be out on the sidelines for Wichita East. Is that right?
That is correct. Coaching over at East again. You know, if you remember correctly, I spent 8 years at Wichita East with Brian Byers. I was there when the Brown brothers were there. If you remember those two players, a couple of the greatest high school football players, I personally think, in the history of Kansas high school football. But anyway, so I've been there going back with Coach E and helping out a little bit. I'm working with the D-line with Coach Reed, Shaq Reed, who was one of my players at East, and I'm helping him out with the D-line. We're having fun. We're going to have a good football team. I love the kids. I love the school. Here we go. It's time. It's time again for Friday Night Lights. I can't wait, Jacob.
Yeah, that'll be fun. We'll have high school football talk. We'll try and get some of that in on Fridays here this fall. See if we can't get our buddy Matt Henderson from Catch It Kansas to jump in and chat a little high school football with us. Really looking forward to it. Paul, it is. You might hear just a little bit in my voice here that it was a long night. We went to, Paul, you know who Zach Bryan is?
It's Country Star, isn't it?
No, I don't know. I think they play some of his songs on country radio. I'm not sure I would qualify him as country, but either way, yes.
Just a little bit. I'm familiar, but not a lot. So fill me in, because there's a lot about him I don't know.
He has blown up in the last year or so. So they set the record last night at Intrust Bank Arena. We were there. Largest crowd ever. Broke the Metallica record. Yeah.
No way. I'll be
Paul,
darned.
it was fun. I've been looking forward to that one. So, he's sort of in the genre that I listen to now in my life. And he was, kind of off the radar a little bit and then really exploded into the mainstream now. And he's on this tour. And I love his opener. Charles Wesley Godwin's one of my favorites right now. That's sort of out there and up and coming. So that's the opener for him. And there was another band on before that. It was fantastic. Imagine, Paul, and it blows me away from how quickly it was, this guy's kind of an internet star to 16,000 people singing every word to every one of his songs, including the ones that he just put out an album 2 or 3 days ago.
Right.
And even some of those songs, it was wild to see that. And he is really popular with younger people. But we're sitting there jamming too. It was a blast, but I was screaming and singing myself.
Yeah. Got a kick out of your post on Facebook.
Got a little less voice today.
Yeah,
What's that?
I got a really kick out of, I believe it was one of your posts where we're talking about the concerts that you've been going to. And it's okay. Okay. I mean, it's all right. If you need to do something to recapture your youth, I'm all for it. If this is what it takes to recapture that escaped youth that you no longer have, it's okay with me. It's just fine with me, Jacob.
Yeah, look, I've always been a concert guy. Growing up at Amarillo, there's the Amarillo Civic Center. It's about half the size of Intrust Bank Arena, probably. So I've never been in an area where big acts come in.
Oh,
So,
well,
most of what
right.
I say is just like bar music, which is still like, what I prefer. I don't know if I can hang anymore like that, like I
got
used
you.
to.
Sure, I see. Yeah.
Where you got you got bands and small venues closing down the thing at 2 a.m. or whatever. Since we moved here, of course, Wichita's got all these great venues to bring in all kinds of different music, and so we've been to a lot of shows. We're kind of bouncing around to shows this year, more bigger ticket shows than we've ever been to. But that one last night to me was the best one I've seen here. No question. It was well done. The production was good. The music was good. The crowd was as into it as you could possibly be. I joked this morning. He sort of, tweeted out the thank you. Well, he did that. So Intrust Bank Arena tweeted out, of course, that they broke the record, the attendance, all that. So he just, retweets that and says, "Go Birds." I was laughing last night. So he's a big time Eagles fan, Paul, like
Oh, that's
Philadelphia
the bird.
Eagles.
Okay, I
And
got
so in the breaks and the intermissions and like even before the encore, you had the Chiefs chant and chop going on.
Right.
And I was like, this is really funny. And Michelle was like, what's going on? And I kind of told her and she was laughing. And then of course he tweets that. I was like, I know that this is making him angry. Like he's a football fan like the rest of us. Like he's a bitter, angry, football fan. So that was funny. That was a cool little thing that happened. He just put out a song and it's about El Dorado, Kansas, oddly enough. And of course he sang that new one. It was fun. It was a good time. Kudos to he and Charles Wesley Godwin and the whole crew there. They put on a hell of a show, and it was fun. And it was late night, and my voice is a little bit shot here this morning, Paul. So that's all right.
We'll get you through. Hey, by the way, so what's your next concert you got scheduled? What gig you got?
I don't think we have anything else
nothing
scheduled.
going on
I think
right
that
now.
was
Okay.
the end of the concert runs for this year for us. We saw Chris Stapleton this summer. We saw Thomas Rhett just recently here. There was one more earlier in the summer that we saw, but it was a busy concert. It was sort of the thing that we did, and I'm not a big ticket guy, Paul. So I don't typically go and like spend a lot of money on tickets.
Gotcha.
It's not something I've ever. So this was a bit out there for us. What's funny about the one last night is it's like him and Taylor Swift, I think, trying to take on the secondary scalping market.
Well, there you
So
go.
it was not a easy that you had to go into a lottery to get the tickets. They wouldn't even send you like the actual ticket until day of the show, so that people couldn't take those and then just put them on a like a site to sell them. I think it's awesome. Trying to take that, because that's why tickets are so expensive, is because people, computers basically go in, buy them all up and resell them. Well, they made that impossible to get a bunch and then resell them. So that part was cool.
Right.
You can go to a show like that. You can get great seats, and it's not going to break the bank to do it. I appreciate him doing that.
I appreciate also the same thing, because, just call me crazy to pay $5,000 up to $5,000 for Taylor Swift ticket. Come on. Are you crazy? Are you nuts? Because there's something wrong. There's just something innately wrong with that kind of gouging, and it bugs the heck out of me. And I'm glad something's being done. I hope it's done all the way through the system, and that nobody can be, taken advantage of just because they want to go support, their favorite artist. Come on now, let's get this right. You got to stop that, or it'll hurt everybody.
Yeah. So it was a good time. It was fun. Had a blast. Glad to be there, everybody. If you were there, you want to give us a call and chat about it. 869-1240. The IHOP hotline is open for you. Glad to have it open for you. I did see a couple of people that said hello last night, Paul, and said hey, and that was good.
Nice.
It's always good. I always do appreciate,
yes,
seeing people that are out there and saying hello, because I get, because you invite that a little bit. It's like, hey, if you're out at the show, say what's up. And I love saying that. So I did say hello to a couple of people who watch or listen to me here. So shout out to those folks. Good show last night. Paul, it was the last weekend of the preseason. How much preseason has been on your mind? We haven't talked, I don't think, since we've had preseason. So just in general terms, how were you with preseason this year? I think I found myself watching it less than probably any other year. I've never watched as little preseason as I watched this year. And to be quite honest, outside of, when I thought the Chiefs starters were playing, I didn't watch any of it, Paul. Like
Well,
I am
well,
it's which is strange because I used to be kind of into the preseason a little
mhm.
bit to see things and do, but it's so unpredictable now when you get ones versus ones that it's really difficult for me to like comprehend what I'm seeing it anymore in the preseason. So I just sort of don't even mess with it at this point.
Well, let me give you an observation because I don't really have statistics to back this comment up, but that's never stopped me before. But it appears to me that starters have played less this preseason than ever before. Now, I don't know that for a fact. That is just an
Yeah.
observation that I think I've been making, and I know that on Hard Knocks, you've got a situation where Aaron Rodgers has come into the New York Jets, which is, by the way, I'm having so much fun. My sister and I meet every Saturday or Sunday and watch that week's Hard Knocks together. This might be the
That's awesome.
most fun Hard Knocks I've ever seen. It's been great. I have loved it. Aaron Rodgers, I am now a fan. I'm hoping the Jets win the Super Bowl. I just love this team. I love the guys. But anyway, with that being said, it appears to me that nobody's playing. I mean, it just seems to me that starters are at a premium. And of course, that's what the preseason's all about. Now, if you were to ask me, what are my takeaways? How good is somebody going to be? An individual going to be? How good is a team going to be? I don't know. I can't tell from preseason because they don't play anybody. They don't. When I say
Well, and if
anybody,
they do play, Paul, they're not play like you might have your starters playing on offense, but the other team's starters on defense aren't playing, or
right?
vice versa.
Well,
It's
even then, it's not much. And so,
right.
For instance, like with Aaron Rodgers, the Jets finally played him in the very, very, very last game of the season against the New York Giants, which New York Jets, New York Giants, it's going to, a little pride there, even though it's preseason. Aaron Rodgers threw what, 8 passes, 10 passes? I'm not sure what it was, but whatever it wasn't very many. Looked good, had some passes dropped. I think they'll all get that together. But I have taken away less this year because it appears to me not as many starters are playing. And so I've probably taken away less knowledge about what's going on with individual teams, individual players than I have in the past, because it just doesn't seem to me that NFL coaches are putting a lot of emphasis on getting experience to guys that already have experience. They're letting the younger guys play. And of course, with the way it's working out with regards to cuts and all that kind of thing, I mean, the last game of the season, you would have still had some guys already cut. But since they've changed that and now everybody's got to get cut, what is it, tomorrow? I believe it's tomorrow.
It's either today or tomorrow.
Yeah, sometime in the late afternoon. So basically, by the end of the day, the business day, you're going to have all the cuts done at basically one big whack. Not everybody's doing it one big whack, but some will. Some have already cut some, and we've seen them come and go. But I have not taken away much at all from this preseason, partly because I just don't think there's any information there to be had.
Well, I mean, you have different philosophies, right? Like Andy Reid still plays his players. He did. Starters play. Patrick Mahomes didn't play in the finale Sunday, but that at least the first drive, most of those guys were in there.
Yeah, but he played the week before, and I held my breath.
Oh, big time!
I
big
held
time.
my
well,
breath.
And that's what I was going to ask you, because Tommy and I have talked about this the last couple of weeks as we try to comb through this very thing. Like, where do you've coached football your whole life? I tend to say it's up to the coach. It doesn't really make a difference one way to me or the other. Like, I don't have a strong opinion on injury risk and not playing players in the preseason. I kind of fall into the, football players have to play football at some point, and you can only do so much to mitigate that injury risk. If a coach determines that he needs his starters to, get preseason reps, I have no issue with that. So I'm fine with it. But you see some coaches, they don't play him at all. And Andy Reid probably plays him as much or more than anybody. Where do you fall with that, preseason snap kind of, discussion?
I wouldn't put a starter in the entire preseason. If I know they can
Really?
do the job, if I've had them on my team, if I know who they are, if I know their work ethic, if I know what they're capable of doing, I'm not putting them in. I'm not going to play them because the NFL football season, Jacob, is so long. I mean, that's it's 17 weeks of grind. You got an off week, granted, and all that stuff. But I'm just saying it's such a grind. It's the biggest grind in all of professional sports, baseball, basketball, I don't care what the sport, hockey, it doesn't matter because the contact is so great. The force is so great. The impacts are so great. So much bad can happen to the human body during the course of a football game. You got 17 games to get through. I'm not playing the guys that I'm going to the bank with. Not going to play them. Not even going to suit them up. I'm going to have them on the sidelines, and I'll make sure they have nice jerseys and a nice hat, and they're comfortable. And a bunch of them I may give headsets so they can listen to what's going on, and that's all fine with me. I'm not playing them. My preseason, I'm not playing them. The grind is too big and too long, Jacob, to play players in preseason.
What if a player, Paul, well, let's talk about situationally then. What if Bryce Young was what if you just drafted Bryce Young? You'd play the rookies, I assume. Like if you had a rookie quarterback, you'd have him out there.
Well, one of my caveats is that if I know them, if they're a veteran, if I know what they're capable of, if I know their work ethic, if I know what they do in the weight room, if I know how they take care of their, yada, yada, yada. I can list about 25 things off what I'm looking at. But if I know those guys, then yes, I am going to set them. If I know they're going to play, I'm going to set them. Now, you may have a starter that's being pushed by somebody. Maybe you bring a rookie in. I don't know. Maybe you bring a rookie in. I'm limiting it to people I know that are going to play. I'm limiting it to people that I'm aware of. I understand them. That's where my limit is. But there are going to be exceptions to that. Obviously, you may have to get a veteran out. Can he keep his job? Maybe it's a guy who's struggling, a veteran who's struggling in camp, but maybe he's been in the league 8 or 9 years, 10 years, whatever it is. And you got to see if he can play. That's not what I'm talking about. But we all know every football team has what, a dozen? Would you say maybe 15 players is going to make the team and be your guy because you know them, you trust them, they're capable of winning for you? I'm not playing them.
What if a player wants to play? Like, what if, let's say it's Patrick Mahomes and just use a hypothetical because I think he's the perfect poster child for this conversation. What if you're Andy Reid and you've got you don't want to really play guys with Patrick Mahomes, like, hey, coach, I got to get some reps in with these new receivers. Like, I think we need some time here with the new receivers. How much do you listen to that if you're a coach and listen to now, I'm not saying that happened or anything, but do you put trust in that or do you just have to make the hard decision for them and say, sorry, we're not doing that?
Right. Well, your youngest child is how old now? I mean, they're growing up so fast.
4 years old.
Yeah, 4 years old. And so your 4-year-old comes to you and says, Daddy, I want candy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's all I want. I want candy. I don't want beans. I don't want anything. That's what I want, Daddy. Or what are you going to tell him? Are you going to do what's good for him? Or are you going to say, oh, sure, sir. Yeah, sure, my child. If you want whatever you want, I'm going to give you. That's what, you got a guy in charge. These NFL coaches, how much money are they making? They're making a lot of money to make decisions. Am I correct, Jacob? I believe I am.
Yeah.
So you do what you think is best. And you want to know something? Preseason's over in a flash. Camp is over in a flash. You start next week. You're in your first week of preparation next week. So it's going to go quick. It's going to go fast. And it's all going to be forgotten anyway. No grudges will be held if you're not playing a player. And by the way, there's not going to be all that many veterans that go, oh, come on, coach, let me in. I want to get in. Come on.
Right. No, I get it. Yeah. I get it. But I think there are situations where you want to see starter groups. That's the thing for me. Like, we kind of need to
tell me the situation. Yeah. No, you tell me.
I just laid one out. Like the new wide receivers wanting to get timing down with Patrick Mahomes. But you can do that in practice. I get it. I get it. And you can also probably do it with the backup quarterback. Let's let Mike chime in real quick on the Chiefs before we take our first break here on the IHOP hotline. It is open for you today at 869-1240. Mike, what's on your mind?
Hey, guys. Hey, it's cool to be on the air. If the Kansas City Chiefs win most of their games in the 2023 season, win the AFC West Division title, go deep into the playoffs, but do not win the Super Bowl, will the season be considered a failure? The standards are high for the Chiefs, after all.
Thanks for the call, Mike. Is it Super Bowl or bust this year? I think some of that depends on Chris Jones. I think if Chris Jones' situation gets to the, and we'll talk about this on the show because there are rumors this weekend that there may be a trade brewing or whatever. But I think dependent on if Chris Jones was there the full time, hell, even if he's not, I do think it's probably Super Bowl or bust. But I think that's the expectation every year. Do I think that means it's a disappointment? I mean, the Chiefs would certainly be disappointed if they don't win a Super Bowl. So I suppose it's fair for the fans to be disappointed if they don't win a Super Bowl. It's an unfair goal, but, it is what it is.
Quick answer, yes. Mike, yes. The answer is yes. Unequivocal. If they do not win a Super Bowl champion with Patrick Mahomes, the greatest quarterback in the game, the best defensive lineman in the game, it's a bust. Runner-up in the Super Bowl ain't going to get it. Jacob, sorry to be so succinct, but this is clear cut for me.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting dynamic when you're this good. Hey, that call brought to you by the IHOP hotline. IHOP, where guests can enjoy 4 new sweet and savory biscuit options. Appreciate the call there. It'll stay open the rest of the way at 869-1240. Thanks for listening in to us here on KFH. Thanks for watching us on our video stream, Facebook, Twitter. Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Is where you can find that video stream. You can leave your comments there as well. It's Albracht. It's Savage in for Tommy Castor today. We're starting the week off right here on Sports Daily. We'll be right back.
869-1240.
Time to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Paul Savage here with you on this Monday edition. Glad to be here. Thanks for tuning in. We've got some giveaways today to get to. We will give away some HTO iced tea. We will give away some Pentatonics tickets. We will give away some Wind Surge vouchers, Paul. All kinds of good chances for folks to win on the program today. Let's start with those Wind Surge vouchers right now. You can give us a call to the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Get your hands on some Wind Surge vouchers. Those are good for any remaining home game to go out to Riverfront Stadium. Jad will get you hooked up. First caller right now, 869-1240, can get their hands on those Wind Surge vouchers. Paul, let's continue discussing the NFL here for a little bit. And this got brought up there at the end of the last segment when we talked about Chiefs' expectations this year, because it's an important question when we talk about Chris Jones. Chris Jones is, there are some trade rumors out there that they might be thinking about, trading Chris Jones. It's gotten to the point, and Paul, we've probably talked about this through the summer here. I've been concerned about this since he held out from OTAs. None of this has made a whole lot of sense to me in the beginnings when everyone was just like, oh, this is fine. They're just waiting on a couple other contracts. And then that'll kind of set. I think that all came from the Chiefs. I think Chris Jones has wanted to get close to Aaron Donald or at Aaron Donald the whole time. The Chiefs were hoping the market would, indicate to his team that that's just not where the market is, which is what the market did indicate. I don't think Chris Jones cares. He wants what he wants, and the Chiefs don't want to pay it. I get it. I get it from the Chiefs' perspective, certainly. And from Chris Jones' perspective, he feels like he's making a good business decision, but he is on a $20 million a year contract this year. At some point, he's got to play. It really comes down to, if you're the Chiefs, are you good with whatever he'll give you on an extended holdout? Let's say I still think was just messing with people on social media, but he threw out week 8. Let's say it's week 8, Paul. What would you rather have? Would you rather see the Chiefs trade Chris Jones right now, or would you rather see him just hang tight through a holdout and get him back in week 8?
Generational. That's the kind
He's fantastic. I agree.
That's the kind of player this guy is. I mean, we have talked over the last couple of years, 3 years on this radio show. And what have I always said? That the number one thing that is so important with any NFL franchise, particularly the Chiefs, is pushing the middle on pass rush. I'm a big believer in that. I just believe that that's the right thing that you need to have to be successful. And it's part of the reason the Chiefs are as good as they are, notwithstanding Mahomes, obviously. But, you get this guy paid, figure it out, settle, get him paid. There's more money in the NFL tree to be shaken out. It'll be okay. The Chiefs will survive. They'll still make a profit. Everybody will be happy. Get this guy paid. And the week 8, you're right. It was flipping. It was just week 8. It's halfway through the season. That's what he's saying. But that's not what the case is going to be, I don't believe. I'd get him signed. I mean, he's sitting there talking about, it's nothing. My fines will amount to $10 million. Well, that's nothing. I got it. It's okay. It's all right. I can play the game. And we both know that those will somehow be will either be waived or it'll somehow be recompensated for. He's not going to be out of pocket for it anyway on the final deal. Get him signed. Chiefs, get him signed. He is so important to this franchise. D linemen, their lifespan in the NFL is limited, as we know. Not as much as running backs, but it's still a limited lifestyle that you can have if you're a D lineman. Get him signed while he's still in his prime. Get those years out. He's the key to the Super Bowl. And like I'm breaking news, but he's one of the keys. Get him signed and get him taken care of. Get the job done. Get him in camp. Let's go.
But Paul, again, to play devil's advocate here, if that contract inhibits you in any way, and I know it keeps getting brought up of L'Jarius Sneed and Willie Gay next year, I'm not as worried about that.
No,
Chris Jones to me, but it's not that one I think the Chiefs are worried about, right. Paul. It's the one 2 years from now with Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey. That's what they're worried about on that offensive line. And so this has been my point from the beginning. if signing Chris Jones to a massive deal like this in any way inhibits the Chiefs from eventually extending and signing Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey, which are in 2 years, I don't think I would do it if I were the Chiefs either, because Chris Jones may very well be, Paul, the second most important player on this team. I'd say third. I think it's Mahomes, Kelsey, or let's say 2A and 2B between Kelsey and Chris Jones.
You can make
a
case, yes. Okay, I'm with you.
But if Mahomes is one, and he's so far and away number one, not only for the Chiefs, but for any player in their organization in the NFL, you have to take care of him. And, not only contractually, which he's been very friendly to the team in that regard, but you have to keep him protected. Why was Tom Brady, Paul, able to do it for 20 years in New England? They made difficult decision after difficult decision after difficult decision. But you know what else they did? They always gave him a good offensive line.
Well, they did.
He never got hit.
That's right.
I mean, he got hit, the one bad hit over his career. But that guy never got hit. Aaron Rodgers, great lines almost all the time. We'll see how he does without a great line this year, because it looks like they don't have one in New York. But in Green Bay, he had consistency and everything there. I'm telling you, the Chiefs are not going to do something. They've seen what it's like to have issues with the line, and they've showed us now time and time again that they are willing to spend a lot of resources, whether through free agency or the draft, to make sure that line is there offensively. And I just don't, if Brett Veach is sitting down crunching the numbers and Chris Jones getting this mega deal, if he thinks that's going to keep him from keeping either one of those other two guys, I get it. I get not doing it. Now, Chris Jones is, Paul, I've said this, but Chris Jones is one of my favorite players to watch.
Absolutely.
Rarely,
right.
And how often in the history of the NFL have guys jumped off the screen of you playing that position?
Not that
There's
many.
a handful, right? It's not a lot. Aaron Donald certainly has.
He is.
Warren Sapp certainly did back in his day, right? And Chris Jones is one of those guys. He's in on everything. I get it. I get his importance. And honestly, I'm sure there is a team in the NFL perfectly willing and happy to give him $30 million a year. If that's the case and the Chiefs think, they can get the appropriate trade value, let's say they can get a first-round pick for him or multiple like second and thirds or whatever, I think they have to think about it, but they have to weigh. I've got no issue, though, if they just ride it out and let him try to help him win a Super Bowl at some point this year, because Jones has to play. He's under contract. At some point, he's going to have to play if he wants to get paid by somebody. And so I don't know what the right answer is, waiting it out or trading him. I think it's probably just waiting it out. I think if he wants to hold out, okay, like hold out then. Like we'll be here. You're under contract. He's not getting franchise tagged. He's not, any of that. He's been given a contract. He's got a big contract here. So the holdout isn't one of those, these running back situations where these guys just they have no opportunity to make money or anything like that. No, Chris Jones this would be his second contract, second big contract with the Chiefs. So it's the decision's sort of on him. I've got no issue with the way the Chiefs have handled this. And most of the time, you side with players on this thing. I just don't have an issue with the way the Chiefs are approaching this, this situation.
Well, obviously it's not good because he's not signed. So there's something, and it appears to me as time is going on, both sides are kind of digging in a little deeper. I almost think that, today it's harder to solve this problem than it was a week ago. I don't know if that's the case or not. But you got a good point. Now, I will say this. Obviously, to the naked eye, offensive linemen are not near as important until you start seeing your quarterback hit. I mean, then you can kind of figure it out at that point. But this is a generational player. This is a guy that is such a big difference maker with regards to what he brings to the defense and basically the overall success, because taking away that little step-up pocket in the pocket, the little place where you step up a couple, 2 or 3 steps into the pocket to be able to get a pass off. I'm telling you what, you have a player that can take that away from an offensive football team, and you've got something special because you limit what they can do extensively, a lot. So I'm torn between the signing. I want the Chiefs to get this done. I don't have a problem with Chris Jones being paid because he is the best at what he does, at least one of the top 1 or 2 in the entire league at what he does. So I'm torn. But what we're talking about is so important. I mean, this is not a flippant conversation that we're having about Chris Jones. This is sort of the basis of how successful this football team will be. And he's going to need to play starting with Detroit. He needs to be playing starting Monday. Now, I don't know how much he'll play. I mean, I'm sure he's still in shape and doing those kind of things. Hasn't been in camp, obviously. But, man, we got to get this thing done. He is so important to the overall success of this team. In the first segment, we talked about a Super Bowl. What are the expectations of the Kansas City Chiefs? Jacob, they're a Super Bowl. That's the expectations. Anything less will not be taken very kindly. So, get him signed, Chiefs. If you're the Chiefs, got to get him signed, Jacob. It's just that simple. I don't know what it takes.
It's not simple at all. It's not simple at all because it might because of what we just talked about. It might prevent them from signing the offensive lineman. And it's not like the Chiefs. It's not like the Chiefs are excited to pocket the money. This isn't Major League Baseball. Like, you have a salary cap. It's not. There's no like greed on the Chiefs' part here. They're trying to evaluate where to allocate the assets that they have to work with.
Right.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
And it sort of comes down to the question to me here. And I hate doing it because I love Chris Jones. He's one of my favorite players in football. He's one of my favorite players to cover. He's interesting. I am a huge Chris Jones fan, but I'm trying to be realistic to the situation. I don't think it's, Orlando Brown and Frank Clark were overpaid. The decision to let them go was very easy because they were overpaid. They weren't worth the contracts they were given. Tyreek Hill is probably the better situation to look at because he absolutely was worth it. He's one of the best at his position and still is. Chris Jones is more like that. And then it becomes, the question of, and the difficult question that you always have to face in the NFL when you have to pay your quarterback, like, can we win without him? And I think the reality is yes. Now, is it going to be more difficult? Sure it is. But Paul, over Chris Jones's career before last year, he missed games every year of his career. And, the Chiefs have had a lot of success, even despite that. Now, I'd have to go back and look at individual games, but my point is, like, it's not like he's been a part of every single game. And let me just simplify it even further. Can the Chiefs win a Super Bowl without Patrick Mahomes?
If you're asking me that right now, I'm going to say no.
No.
Not even close?
Absolutely not.
Can they even make the playoffs?
Maybe, but they're not winning. No, the answer is no. They can't win a Super Bowl without Patrick Mahomes. So then the question becomes, can they win a Super Bowl without Chris Jones? And I think the answer is yes. I think you could take any player away, and as long as you have Patrick Mahomes, the answer is yes. So if anything, if there's any risk to Patrick Mahomes, who is the one player that you can't afford to lose, then you have to do everything to help him. And it's not like I'm saying Patrick Mahomes is costing Chris Jones this opportunity. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying if you're the Chiefs, you have to understand what gives you the best chance to win. And that is unequivocally and the easiest answer in the world. It's Patrick Mahomes versus replacement value. The Chiefs can win a Super Bowl without Chris Jones. I mean, that's the thing about the NFL, Paul, that, the market tells us this over and over and over and over again. Mediocre quarterbacks get massive contracts. Why? Because you cannot win a Super Bowl without an at least good, above average Super Bowl in today's NFL. So everything has to go into that mindset. We have to do everything we can to help our quarterback. And for the Chiefs, if Chris Jones, I'm telling you, if it's not Willie Gay and L'Jarius Sneed, that's not what they're worried about. Because Chris Jones is more valuable than those two players. That's not even debatable at this point. Chris Jones is one of the most valuable players in football defensively that there is.
Yeah. But
he's not more valuable than Patrick Mahomes. And I think the Chiefs are saying he's not more valuable than making sure Patrick Mahomes is protected. That's the point.
That's the best point you've ever made on a show that you and I have done together. You just kind of set me in my place right at that moment. You're right. Mahomes can't win. You can win without Jones. I mean, greatest point you've ever made in all the radio we've ever done together.
It's the difficulty the Chiefs face right now, and the reality they unfortunately know. They know that we cannot do anything that doesn't protect Patrick Mahomes. 869-1240 is the IHOP hotline. We'll come back. We'll do some more giveaways. Want to talk a little college football? There's realignment rumors out there in regards to the Big 12. We'll get into that a little bit, as well as some Major League Baseball. Shohei Ohtani, he's the ultimate teammate. He's out there with his guys when he doesn't have to be. I love it. I'm here for it. 869-1240. It's Albracht and Savage. Jad Chambers producing. We'll come back more right after this.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. It is Sports Daily here on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Paul Savage with you on a Monday edition, kicking things off. Paul in for Tommy. Tommy's back tomorrow. I appreciate Paul jumping in here. The IHOP hotline is open at 869-1240. We still have a couple more giveaways to do here throughout the show today. We've been talking NFL training camp. We've been talking Chris Jones, Kansas City Chiefs. It's a difficult decision that looks like it's going to go into the regular season, Paul. Even at this point, if something was solved and figured out over the next, week and a half, I don't think Chris Jones would play in the first week. At this point, they don't know what kind of shape he's in. They don't know anything about that. The coaches have told us time and time again, like, it takes time. It takes time. So I don't think they would just throw him right out there. And I think, Paul, too, the coaches have become annoyed with this right now. It's a distraction. They don't like it. The players are saying the right things, of course, and the coaches are trying to toe the line, but they've got a job to do. And they don't, quite frankly, I think at this point, it doesn't really matter what happens. They've got to prepare the team without him to try and win a football game against the Lions. And the Chiefs I think they've looked fine in the preseason. I think we've seen what we need to see. I think the offensive line, with just a little tinkering, has looked really good. 2 new tackles in there, but I think they've done a nice job. The interior, of course, is locked up with, 3 Pro Bowl caliber players. So I think that piece looks good. I think the backfield, it was good to see Pacheco get a couple of reps. I think the guys behind Pacheco have done a really nice job this preseason, probably of alleviating the Chiefs' potential need to bring somebody else in. I think they're probably pretty satisfied with what they have there. The wide receiver room, that was probably, again, it's the second straight year we've sort of seen quite a bit of turnover with Kadarius Toney going down. So I think that group has also shown itself to look good and be fine. And defensively, I think it's impossible for me to look at the preseason and determine anything defensively because nobody shows anything or does anything. We'll find that out on that Thursday night against the Lions. But all in all, Paul, most injuries avoided throughout the preseason games. I think this was a very successful and nice camp and preseason for the Chiefs, and now it's back to the business of winning another Super Bowl here.
Right. You brought something up. Let me just focus on one particular thing at the beginning of your comments there, and that is with regards to when does Chris Jones play? He's got to get signed by the weekend or he's not going to play in game 1 because that would give him a full week of preparation. He's staying in shape.
I don't even think he would do it with that. Do you,
Paul?
Think?
I don't know. This is the NFL, man. You got to go. You got to play.
I know you got to go, but the coaches, if you're going to cave and get Chris Jones in here, you got to make sure he's in good shape. Like what happens on Thursday against the Lions isn't going to determine whether or not the Chiefs win a Super Bowl. So I think and if they determine he can get there, that's fine. But I would bet you that he wouldn't play in week 1, even if he signed today.
Maybe it's got to be a little earlier. You're probably right. But I'm just saying there's a time that is set in everybody's mind in that organization. What it is, I'm not sure.
Paul, you thirsty? Let's give away some HTO iced tea.
Yeah.
Couple of free tea cards right now. Good for HTO here in Wichita West at 13th and Tyler East at 21st and 127th. Coming very soon in Derby. But you can use those free tea cards at either Wichita location. More than 25 flavors to choose from. Go inside, try them all out. Get a couple of free iced teas from HTO on us here at Sports Daily. We'll come back. Hour number 2. We'll get into the latest in conference realignment rumors. And we'll talk a little about Shohei Ohtani continuing to play well as a batter, not a pitcher.
Yeah.
Should he be doing that? That's all coming up. The Sports Daily gets into hour number 2 next.
Laugh Out Loud Mornings with Bob and Tom on 97.5 and 1240 KFH. Wichita's most listened to sports radio. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
Pizza John's has been serving Derby since 1969. We pride ourselves on our great pizza and...
All right, welcome in, everybody. Hour number 2 now of Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Paul Savage with you here on a Monday edition. Thanks, everybody, for listening in to us on KFH, of course, 97.5 FM, 1240 AM. Thanks for watching us on our video stream, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. It is football season. There's a nice crisp air about the morning. Forgive a little bit of a rasp in my voice today at the big Zach Bryan concert. Set a record for crowd at Intrust Bank Arena last night. Congratulations, Wichita, for doing that. It was a locked-in crowd, just a ton of fun. There are people of all ages that have grown to enjoy Zach Bryan. Paul, my wife, was laughing. She came back from the bathroom and I was like, what's so funny? And she was like, I was in there and I could just hear these teenage girls. And this girl was like, I had to wear, 3 layers of makeup because I knew I'd be crying and I've already cried once. And I'm going to cry more when and he hadn't even come on yet. Like it was still, I was just like, oh my God, like to be young again. And like that, just like,
man.
But it's so fun when you get swept up in it and you're there. And of course, everybody, like I'm telling you, everybody was singing and jumping around. It was fun. Good job, Wichita. I thought, handled themselves on a tour that, is all over the country in LA and Phoenix. I would imagine they had as much fun last night as any other night out there. So kudos to the Wichita crowd last night. It was great. But to scream and sing for 2.5 hours, Paul, it takes a little bit out of the voice here. So we'll get through it today. You sent me a couple of stories. This one's interesting. We've talked gobs and gobs of conference realignment. Just unreal amounts of realignment. And now I think it was the San Francisco Chronicle, Paul, that put out, I believe. Basically, you've got, and we've talked about Cal and Stanford and their potential to the ACC alongside SMU, and I guess there's renewed discussions there. But the San Francisco Chronicle is reporting that if that doesn't go through, then attention will turn to joining the Big 12. So I don't know what to make of that article for a couple of reasons. And it points back to, Stanford would prefer the ACC because of, the prestige academically and all that nonsense. Like other places don't have prestige academically. It bothers me.
Right,
and of course, this is coming from a newspaper in San Francisco. It's just like laughable to this whole situation that even now they're trying to paint this picture of, well, if we can't get in where we want, then I guess we could backdoor to the Big 12. And if that happened, that Oregon State and Washington State would come through. And I do feel bad for Oregon State and Washington State. But, the Bay Area schools continue to thumb their nose a little bit, even in report. And I'm like, guys, number one, I'm not 100% sure the Big 12 would have any interest in adding Cal or Stanford, or they already would have, right? And number two, like, you act like it would be this privilege for, those two schools to jump into the Big 12. And I'm like, I don't know that they're worth it, Paul. Like, I don't, I think 16 is the number. And I've never understood this part of the media deal, whether it's like, no matter how many schools you add that are Power 5 that get full shares and they don't have to negotiate that, or if it's after 16, I've also heard that 16 is the cap on that. If they're, going to come in and water it down, the Big 12 certainly won't want them. Like zero interest, right? If they can come in as full members and get grandfathered in, I don't know. I'm not convinced that the Big 12 would want those other four schools, or I think they would already have them if they wanted them. They'd at least have Oregon State and Washington State if they wanted them, because they don't have offers from anywhere. I don't know that I buy this story, Paul. I don't think the Big 12 has interest in Cal or Stanford.
Well, I sent you a story on how it looked like it was going to be a sure deal. And then a day later, I sent you another story where, no, the same publication says, well, not so fast, my friends. It's not going to happen at least at this point. And I don't know what to make of it either. I was telling Jad over the break, I said, isn't it interesting that the ACC, Atlantic Coast Conference, is going to take two football teams or two schools that are literally 20, 25 miles from the Pacific Ocean. I find that amusing in a way. But I guess with the Big 12, Cal and Stanford in particular, why would we take them when nobody in their circles cares about football? Have you ever seen the stadium at the University of California on game day? Jacob, have you ever seen a picture of the stands? It's not full. It's not half full. It's maybe a third full. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about Cal football. Nobody
I don't see. I think that's a little bit of a misnomer too. I looked this up, and I know that listed attendance is not always accurate, and perception
never is.
And perception, is more important. But it would be very hard to inflate some of the listed numbers for Cal. I mean, Cal's listed number at D1 Ticker, who just populates all these, was about 38,000 per game. Now, I don't know what their capacity is.
60, 70,000. Right? But it's huge.
But Paul, 38,000, if I'm just looking at the Big 12, let's say it's 38,000 and just the listed. I mean, that's, you're getting into a situation that's not that far off of, those same numbers by Big 12. It's a little under Kansas, what Kansas was last year on listed. So I don't know. I think that there are great college football fans at both of those places. Great. I hate that they're in this situation, but a part of the reason they're in this situation to begin with is even after all of this has happened, there's still this perception that the Big 12 would be so privileged to have them, Paul. And it's just not true.
It's not
right?
true.
It's not reality that is the case.
Yeah.
Washington State is down below 30,000 a game. Oregon State's right above 30,000. Stanford's below 30,000. Cal's at 30. Those are all under every single Big 12 team last year. In the American, you had Houston at 25, Cincinnati. Let me pull. Cincinnati's at 38, so Cincinnati's even way out ahead of them. UCF, I got to find them here. It was at 41, so they're ahead of it. So it's not like even in the new Big 12, and Houston's making a big addition, I think, to their stadium and has sold more season tickets than they ever have.
Yes.
It's just like you guys, they're not understanding. Like you can say all these things, but do you really improve the Big 12 football brand? I don't think so. And we're now the Big 12's in the West Coast with the four corners. They can fill their TV windows. So that part of it, they don't have to worry as much about that. So then you think, okay, like what about the other sports? And Stanford's good at everything, basically, except for football lately. But like all the Olympic sports and all that stuff, like they're a great athletic program. They haven't been great at basketball, men's basketball lately, and they haven't been great in football. So if you're trying to, talk about market, that'd be a great women's basketball program. But if you're trying to talk about like adding to the potential television deals down the road, which is what matters right now in all these negotiations, Cal doesn't move the needle at all. Oregon State and Washington State, I love those schools, but they're just not big enough at this point. And Stanford, they don't really move. They move a football meter just a little bit, I think. I still think Stanford football has some swag, and you never know what's going to happen with Notre Dame. So it's probably always worth listening in to Stanford, and then also like giving Notre Dame a nudge and saying, well, what do you guys think? Because you never know what's eventually going to happen with Notre Dame. But I just don't think it adds much value at this point if you've gotten into the television windows you need. But again, like you see these reports from the West Coast that are like, oh, if it doesn't work out with the ACC and they're still talking about it, we'll just end up with the Big 12. The Big 12 will want us then. They're not quite up to our academic standards, but they'll still want us. And I'm like, no, I don't know that they will. I don't know that the Big 12 wants them. I don't, and maybe they do. I mean, maybe ultimately, Paul, there's truth to that reporting and just the tone is odd. And maybe the Big 12 says, yeah, we'll take those schools. But I don't know how much that improves right now, Paul, because we still don't know what the next wave of realignment is, right? If the next wave is a breakup of the ACC, there's a ton more in the ACC that the Big 12 would be interested in than any of those four schools right now. And without knowing that future, I just don't know how antsy the Big 12 is going to be to go add them. I don't think that they will.
Well, here's the problem, though, when you start talking about the ACC breaking up. The SEC and the Big Ten are going to get their pick of teams. I mean, there's no competition in this scenario for the Big 12 that they can come in and say, well, let's go get North Carolina or Virginia or Florida State. That's not going to happen.
They could get the remainder if those other schools get poached, Paul. All of a sudden, Florida State or Miami and Louisville, and there's some great schools in the ACC that the Big 12 would love to have. There, Virginia Tech, like Pittsburgh, like there's all kinds of good
and
programs there.
Yeah, right.
If the other big ones come in and begin that, and we've seen it now happen how many times? I mean, it's just history repeating itself. The ACC's got to try to get big enough that they feel like they're not going to get poached. Maybe a handful do, because it's you're not going to be able to avoid it if the Big Ten or the SEC wants somebody. It's, can you survive ultimately when that happens? Can you survive with what you've got left? And that's why they'll need to be aggressive as they can be. They're so locked into that deal, they can't be that aggressive.
Right.
But I understand the ACC wanting to add SMU and Stanford and Cal, even though it's a travel nightmare, it does give you some security ultimately when you're poached by the Big Ten and the SEC. Addition is always good in the current state of college athletics. So I'm not sure that vote doesn't get pushed through this second time around, but it is. I don't think there's much appeal for the Big 12 to add those four, or they would have already done it, Paul.
Question real quick. SMU is an interesting school for me on all this that's going on right now. Is the Big 12 missing something by not taking SMU?
If they're willing to come in as an unpaid member, because that's what they're proposing to the ACC.
7 years in the ACC. 7 years, we're not going to take any money. We're not going to take any of the TV money. I mean, that tells me something right there. But the fact is, SMU is located in Dallas, Texas, right in the hub of what, 5, 6, 7 million population base within 100 miles. I mean, that's something, and and they've had their day. The Pony Express, all that stuff. They've had their day. They've been good at times over the years. And if you had to keep even, the number of schools even, and so you needed somebody to offset a particular school like SMU, I'm going to throw you out something. You can laugh at me if you want. Air Force Academy. I would like to see SMU and the Air Force Academy in the Big 12. Then you take Washington State.
SMU to the Big 12 would be fun. I don't know. The problem for me, Paul, is SMU has just gobs and gobs of money.
They do.
It's a school the size of TCU. It's
right.
a small
12,000 students is what it is.
Right. I don't know. I don't believe that it moves the needle all that much because nobody goes to school there. They can't afford it. It's not like, and TCU struck while the iron was hot, and they've now developed this athletic program, right? The athletic programs between
right.
TCU and SMU aren't even comparable.
That's right.
Point.
That's correct.
So this is why SMU is willing to have all its donors come in and say, we'll foot the TV bill, just get into a Power 5 league, because that they also think the same thing that happened for TCU could happen for them. I could see it. Geographically and, maybe even emotionally, it would make some sense for the Big 12. It would be fine, I guess, but I don't know that kind of offers out there for SMU to the Big 12 right now. So, if the SMU can get in anywhere, and they've got these people willing to foot the bill for it, go for it. I get it from SMU's perspective. Whether they join the Big 12, I don't think they move the needle for the Big 12 at all.
Right.
It would create a nice little rivalry scenario, I guess, certainly with TCU and maybe with Baylor. But the Big 12 already owns the Dallas market. But the unfortunate reality is they're not going to own it for long because Texas and Oklahoma are leaving. So much of the Dallas market is just like everywhere in Texas, Paul, but especially Dallas because Oklahoma is literally right up the street from Dallas. Dallas, like everywhere in Texas, has a lot of Texas fans and a lot of Oklahoma fans and the others too. But like I would bet you that if we, power ranked allegiances or, just the numbers of fans in the area, I don't think SMU would be ahead of Texas, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Baylor, TCU, probably Texas Tech, and then maybe you get to SMU, maybe. I just don't think they move the needle tremendously for a league that already has a ton of that market anyway.
Right.
The ACC, on the other hand, it gets the ACC into the Dallas market. Like, I understand that appeal for the ACC, but the Big 12's already there.
Right.
They're headquartered there.
All right. Well, that's a good. Well, what about Air Force? What about my desire to see Air Force? In the Big 12, and part of that is just because we, sometimes you do some things that make you good, that make you whole, and that's one of them for me. Will they rock the needle? Probably not. But I'll tell you what, there's just something special about the academies, these young men who are not going to go into pro football, but they play their hearts out. Although, it was tough for Navy over the weekend against Notre Dame in Ireland. It was very, very difficult. I don't know. I kind of like it. I just think you've got the University of Colorado there, and I just think that would help the Big 12 presence within the television community. And by the way, there's all kinds of young men from all across the country that go to these academies all over. So there's going to be a little bit of interest in every state in the union at some point, or some, maybe not tons, but there's going to be interest in it. I don't know. I'm kind of for it. Maybe you're not. And I would understand why you're not. I mean, I'm not sure it makes economic sense, but I still would like to see Air Force in. It would be a natural fit, particularly with two teams
no,
in
I mean,
Colorado.
I think if you're looking to that world, you would, and this isn't happening. I think, San Diego State, Boise State are probably more appealing. I think ultimately that whole group, here's what I think the best case scenario is for college sports, maybe not for everybody within these particular places. I still think the scenario of a combined somehow AAC, Mountain West, and those 4 remaining Pac-12s, I think that's the best case scenario for college sports. I think that is as close to keeping a 5th Power 5 Western-based league as we have.
Right.
I think that I happen to think that there would be appeal from some of the non-traditional media groups, a la Apple TV, maybe Amazon, because if you're talking about, those places are talking as much about subscribers as they're talking about like eyeballs and viewers. I think that you would, if you did something like that, you would absolutely gain subscribers, because a lot of the schools in the Mountain West, I don't think people realize just the enrollment numbers on some of those schools. Like you're talking about big universities up and down the Mountain West, the AAC, and those, obviously those 4 remaining Pac-12 schools. I think that would have a ton of appeal for one of those,
right,
streamer
well,
services. And,
good point.
And maybe an opportunity for, maybe not for the Pac-12 schools. Unfortunately, they're going to take a loss no matter what they do. But for everybody else in that scenario, I think they can make more money doing that. And maybe, and the most important part of all of that, maybe keep a spot at the CFP table, because that ultimately is what it will be. That's what everybody's looking at and looking for, is trying to make sure you're positioned to be able to get in through the new expanded CFP.
Well, that makes total sense to me, and there are other options. It's interesting where this is going to be. I don't know, now with football starting up, how much talk are we going to hear throughout the season? It could be a distraction to certain teams about what's going on in their future and that kind of thing. But I find it fascinating as we get ready to roll in this coming weekend into the football season. There are so many questions, and I remember the first words we spoke on this radio show about teams leaving one league and going to another. And I remember thinking to myself, what's going on here? Are you kidding me? You're leaving that league to go to and I remember thinking, well, that's just a one-off. I mean, these kind of things, I guess, happen at some point or another. I remember when the Southwest Conference, Jacob, I know you remember the old Southwest Conference.
Yeah.
And when it went away, do you remember that? And I thought to myself, my gosh, this is once in a lifetime. And well, I was a little wrong on that one. It's almost everyday occurrence now, but
we've seen, Paul, I mean, we've seen this time and reshuffling in college sports has happened forever. It's not a new thing. And the reality is, I think all these places realize and understand they're going to have to pay players soon enough. And so they're trying to make as much money as they can. I mean, it's just, you have to. It's going to be the next level of survival in big time college sports, that eventually players are going to get paid. So you got to take these deals. I mean, it's the natural progression of things, because for too long players haven't been, and the NCAA and they lose every time they go to court, and it's going to keep happening. And eventually I think that's the end game. And we'll see how that plays out. That's a complicated, obviously, formula, but topic for another day. Right now, it's just, where's everybody going to land? That's what we're all watching. And those are the latest reports as far as the next phase of this. And it does involve the Big 12. Don't know if I buy it, but we'll see. 869-1240. If you want to chime in on the IHOP hotline, we've got Pentatonics tickets to give away a little later in the hour. Coming back, we'll talk a little Shohei Ohtani. He was great over the weekend.
Oh, I like that.
Dude's got a bum arm. And I know people are pulling their hair out of, why would he do this? Why would he not have the surgery now? And man, I got to tell you, I'm here for him not having it yet. 869-1240 is the number. We'll come back. Albracht and Savage on a Monday edition of Sports Daily.
Go ahead. I think I want to hear this.
Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. It's Albracht. It's Savage for Castor today. Jacob Albracht, Paul Savage. Chad Chambers producing. Congratulations to John for winning our HTO giveaway. Glad to be able to provide you that delicious iced tea, John. Paul, do I have you?
Just waiting for you to go. Oh, I
Okay.
see. Yeah, I see what I thought you were going to add a little more to say. But, hey, by the way, I've got my HTO story ready to go. You ready for this? So
Yeah.
my sister says to me the other day, I got a gallon of tea and I was just crazy about it. And I said, so I thought to myself, well, what crazy flavor did she pick? Because how many flavors do you guys have? I mean, it's got to be what, 20, 30, 40?
26. Depends on the time of year. It's more than 25 always.
Gotcha. So she's got all and I kept waiting for her to say, some flavor that I've never even heard of. Jacob, you know what you got? Plain iced tea, unsweetened.
That's
And you
what
go
I
to
drink.
HTO and get plain iced tea, unsweetened. And my sister absolutely loved it. And I think in the next week or so, she's got to go back and get some more. She got 2 gallons of it, and it's almost gone. But it was plain tea, Jacob. I don't know what you think about that, but I mean, I'm thinking to myself, all these flavors you got, and my sister gets plain iced tea. Are you kidding me? But anyway, I got a kick out of that story because
that's what I drink. I drink most of the time. I drink just the unsweet regular
Really?
iced tea. Put a little lemon in there. Yeah, that's
You
what
got
I grew up on. That's what That's what I mix it up every once in a while. But for the large majority of the time, that's what I'm drinking at HTO too.
You got
Paul. Let's
flavors
talk a
coming
little
out
bit
there.
about.
Okay, anyway, I'm just going to say, my sister loves your plain iced tea, unsweetened. I just thought you might like to know that. She loves it.
I do. I love hearing it because, sometimes people call me crazy for doing that too. John can check it out. He won some HTO. We'll give away some more tomorrow.
Good.
Congratulations,
Good,
John.
good.
And make sure, and we'll have Pentatonics tickets. Stay tuned for chances to win those
Beautiful.
Pentatonics tickets. Paul, what do you think of Shohei Ohtani playing for the Angels right now?
Man, I'll tell you what, he's made the right decision. I mean, after all, just what, maybe 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, at least 3 weeks ago, we've been talking about a contract that's going to be in the $500 million range. Let me say that again. $500 million. That's what we've been talking about with regards to what the contract's going to be that he signs and whether he's going to stay with the Angels. It really doesn't matter who takes him. That's where the area of this contract's going to be, $500 million. And then, of course, the injury with the elbow and that kind of thing comes in. It happens with pitchers. We see it happen all the time. And yet he decided to stay with the team and continue to bat. I think that is so cool. I think that is so great.
I do too.
You know something? I would have done it. I wouldn't even had to have think about it. Doc, can I play? Yes, you can bat. Then I'm playing. That's about how that would have been my decision-making process right there. And so I think it's so cool. And by the way, what he's done in the last way, even what he did over this weekend and over the course of since this injury has happened is elite. He is elite. He is one of the,
I mean, he's still doing it.
He's still doing
it. He had 2 hits in the game on Saturday.
Right, that is correct.
He had a hit on the game on Friday. He stole 2 bases on Saturday. Like, he's going full. He's and I hear so many times people are like, he's so crazy, so dumb for doing that. Like, he needs to get that surgery so he's healthier sooner for his next team. And like, at some point, everybody, his next team, he's on a team right now. He's got a current team. Like, yeah. What world are we like? That's like saying I've given, and we don't know where he's going to play. I don't think it will be the Angels, but that's like, Paul, that's equivalent to saying, you're about to take another job. You've got another month and a half left with your current employer. Right. I ought to just mail it in and start focusing on that other job, even though, the employer he's leaving is paying him right now. And he's been a teammate to these people for years and years. So there's this group that's like, I'll just abandon them. Who cares about them? Worry about your next spot. And I'm like, what? Like, when did we get to that point?
Right.
No.
Right.
Like, kudos to him for saying, No, I'm not going to worry about my free agency until I finish the job that I signed up to do with the Angels. They've
Right.
put a lot of money, they put a lot of trust. They've done all of these things for me. I'm going to play it out for the guys in that locker room and an organization that has already paid me a ton of money to get over to the States in the first place. Like, I'm going to play this out for them. I can do it. I can hit. I'll put off the surgery for 5 weeks and get my pitching elbow fixed, and I'll be ready to hit next year and probably pitch in 2 years. And I like, kudos to him and the kind of teammate. If I'm a prospective team to sign him to free agency and I see what he's doing right now, Paul, it makes me far more inclined to sign him than if he would have done the alternative.
Correct.
Because we don't know what the future health situation on his,
Right.
that's always going to be a risk. But at least I know now that this dude's going to lay it all out there, no matter what, for my organization.
Right.
I think that is a tremendous quality. And for anyone who says he's dumb or an idiot or whatever for doing this, like, have you ever been a teammate before? Have you ever been somebody's teammate that's counting on you? Come on now.
Right.
Like, don't give this guy a hard time for playing it out with his guys.
Right. I'm with you on this. Now, here's the thing also. If, for instance, well, and one thing, by the way, you said, and you were kind of adamant, I think you really believe he's going to leave the Angels. One of the things that everybody believes he's going to do, he's going to go to a major market. That's where he wants to go. You know, the New Yorks, the Los Angeleses.
He's in a major market.
That's right. That's
I think
why
he wants to win.
Yeah, but that's why he may end up, if there's a reason he stays with the Angels, it's because he's already in that major market. So I don't know that it's a sure deal he's going to leave yet. He is in that major market. But with that being said, boy, did he ever make himself some money staying on him and batting. Because here's the thing, Jacob, and it's just common sense. I mean, I don't even know this, but I do know it because it makes sense. And that is, people would question, can he still play? What's his injury? Why is he not playing? What's his value to us? Are we willing to sign this guy for this amount of money without knowing, can he play? Will he be able to play? Well, guess what, Jacob? The answer to that question is yes, he can play. Yes, he can contribute.
There is
he can bat.
Absolutely a business component to this. And
Yes,
I don't think this
Yes,
is
there-
why he's doing this,
No,
by the
no,
way.
I
But
don't
I
either.
think, but I do think, yeah, look, again, nobody knows how his pitching arm is going to hold up now going through a second Tommy John at some point, if in fact he needs the surgery. Nobody knows the answer to that. No prospective team knows that. And by the way it goes in today's baseball, you kind of don't ever know that anyway, right?
No, that's true.
Look at what the Rangers were willing to just pay Jacob deGrom for a similar injury risk, right? The market will be willing to give that a shot because he is so talented. But why? Like, it's far more likely to give him a shot because you know that, God, even if he never pitched again, he's still one of the top 2 to 3 hitters in baseball right now. And you're getting that. So it's almost like by doing this too, like he's raised the floor on the potential market value of himself. When there's so much unknown, he's showing you that with a blown UCL right now, look at what he can still do at the plate.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's awesome and so good for baseball. And this guy who's had, I mean, in Paul, I in my lifetime, I can think of Ken Griffey Jr.
All right.
And the steroid era guys when that was happening.
Okay.
As the only time that, individual players have really, mesmerized the entire country. I'm not sure. And maybe it did last year. Aaron Judge's home run chase probably did, but I don't even know that it was to the same level that Shohei Ohtani has wowed us all this year. Like, you've got this ambassador for the game, a game that I love so much, absolutely laying it on the line when he doesn't have to, telling us that this, baseball, these games matter to me. And if they matter to me, they probably matter more to the fan. Like, such a wonderful ambassador to the sport. And I appreciate it as a baseball fan. I don't think it's, naive or silly or Like sometimes you just like you got to play baseball. You got to be a teammate. He signed up to do a job.
That's right.
He's doing the job. He's not going to abandon his play. The guys in that locker room, and I've got all the respect in the world for it. I'm glad he's doing it. And again, I do think, like you, Paul, that there's a piece of it down the road where it will work to his advantage in the free agent market when people see that he's doing this.
No question, because he loves baseball, and I mean that's worth something. But he has value. I mean, he is showing everybody that's going to be interested in trying to sign this guy. I mean, he has shown that he has value, that he can play. Maybe he can't pitch. Maybe we don't know whether he will ever pitch again. I don't know. You don't know. I'm not even sure he understands whether he will or not. Probably doesn't know either. So he's going to have value because he's shown he still has value. He's a player. But the beautiful thing about Otani is that he has that childlike love of the game. And let's face it, baseball, no matter what, no matter how many $1 million guys make playing it, Jacob, it's still a child's game. It's still a game that we played in the lot across the street or down at the school. That is still what baseball is. And he has this childlike love for the game. At least that's what it appears to me. And Jacob, that's a beautiful thing.
I love it, and I kudos to him.
Yes.
I'm here for it. I think that it's awesome, and I think it's silly that people are trying to knock him for making that decision. That's absolutely in the best interest of the team that he currently plays for.
Well,
right?
he's
not
making
free
money
agent yet.
He's making money off of this decision right now because the contract that he signs is going to be based upon the fact that he has value to somebody right now, and that's not in question.
All right, 869-1240. Let's do our last giveaway. Jad will get us festive here. Paul, are you a Christmas music guy, Paul?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Really and truly, I love it. Now, I don't want it year round. Don't get me wrong.
What do you think about September here being a little too early for it? Because
Well,
we're almost to September. Pentatonics is a lot of fun. They're
Yeah.
an a cappella group. You've probably seen some of their videos. They are having a Christmas show. Now, their show's not till December 19th. So we're not trying to tell you we got to have Christmas music in September here.
Well, there are several groups that I want to go see because and Christmas music is a part of it. This is one of them. I mean, these guys are fantastic.
It'll be a fun show. It's Tuesday, December 19th. Tickets are on sale. You can win a pair right now with us. We'll do the second caller to the IHOP hotline. 869-1240 is that number. Jad will round us up a winner. We'll come back with more Sports Daily. Good luck, everybody. Paul, Jacob, we'll be right back on the other side.
This child that you delivered will soon deliver you.
Hey, did you know that you can, you can hear us here on Sports Daily always. If you missed a show, you can go back there in podcast form at kfhradio.com or on the Odyssey app. You can also check out more than 2,400 sports podcasts available for you there. Just one of many great features on that Odyssey app. Very, very cool stuff there. You've got all kinds of team content and everything there. So check it out. You'll hear K-State Athletics, Paul, this year on KFH. Got game coming this weekend. Looking forward to it. It'll be a blast. We're excited to have that. We had Chris Kleiman on recently. We had Wyatt Thompson, the voice of K-State, on. We're looking forward to hearing K-State football here on KFH this year and K-State basketball then after that. Should be a lot of fun. All kinds of great stuff happening here at KFH and our Odyssey families. Of course, the home of Wichita State Athletics, the home of Chiefs here in town, Royals, all kinds of great stuff. And it's all available to you streaming, Odyssey app, kfhradio.com, as well as you listening to us here. Congratulations to Jared, headed to see Pentatonics in December, courtesy of Sports Daily. Glad to be able to do that for you. Paul, you got college football coming up here this week. We had a little action over the weekend there. Notre Dame looked really impressive in their, what do we call it? Week 0,
right?
Week 0
right.
game. We look ahead to the Big 12. KU is in Friday night action against Missouri State. They play that Friday game, so that'll coincide with the start of high school football for us here. There's not, I'm just looking, let me just make sure. TCU and Colorado actually play again this year, which is kind of interesting. That's Prime's first game. Other than that, K-State takes on SEMO. Again, you'll hear that here. We fully expect, the Wildcats to roll through that game.
That is correct.
West Virginia plays Penn State, which is a good one. So if you're looking at the Big 12 slate, as far as like meaningful action, I think Coach Prime's first game taking on TCU is a big one. I think West Virginia taking a shot at Penn State, a team some people think has a chance to win a natty this year. And then, of course, we'll always pay attention to the two local schools. But it's not a bad little slate to get things kicked off for the college football season.
No, it's not. And, of course, one of the interesting games that we'll want to keep our eye on is LSU and Florida State. I mean, that's ACC versus the SEC. And both those teams, I think, Jacob, they're in the top 10. I think both those teams are in the top 10. One of the games, though, that I am looking forward to is the Colorado TCU. The welcome of Coach Prime. So let's see how that goes. I like that. By the way, last weekend, let me back up to last weekend for just a second. I'm going to make a statement right now, and that statement is simply this. USC will not win a national championship. USC this year, they are not defensively very good. Now, I know you're thinking to yourself, well, they just crushed, who they were playing, but who they were playing was San Jose State. Come on. Now, no offense if you're a San Jose State fan. I don't mean to insult you, but there were a lot of things that I saw on the defense with regards to USC that when they start playing some of these teams in the Big Ten, they're going to have some problems. They're going to have some real problems. And physicality, I think, is going to be one of those problems. I really didn't think if you're a top 10 team in the country that you shouldn't be more physical than USC is. I just think that they're not going to go anywhere in the national championship hunt. They're going to have their amount of problems. Now, they're going to win some games, but they're going to win some games, 42-37, stuff like that. I mean, they're not going to, let people, play without scoring, and that's the problem. So USC, and Jacob, correct me if you disagree. I mean, it's just an opinion, but I wasn't impressed with USC, and I watched at least a half of that game.
I didn't. I was sort of following it. I don't know. USC's hard for me because I'm so enamored with their potential offensively.
Well, I didn't. No, they're good. Yeah, they're good offensively, Jacob.
It's hard to imagine a team that can't play defense winning a national championship when you consider what they're likely going to go up against in the SEC, right? I get it, but I also think, Paul, TCU showed us last year that you can get there that way.
Right. No, that's true.
The Pac-12 is going to be really tough this year. The Pac-12 looks like it's going to be good. But TCU showed us last year that you can shoot out your way to a national championship. Now, everything has to go right. And
It does.
it certainly did for TCU last year when you really think about like, how crazy it was, how many opposing quarterbacks were getting hurt every time they would play, in TCU. So I think it's possible. You just have to be very, very lucky to do it. Can, seemingly the best quarterback in college football with a talented roster get? Yeah, I'd say there's a chance. Is it likely? No, it's not likely by any means. But, I love the offense. I love anytime it gets mixed up and moved out of the traditional teams that are there. And growing up, I hated USC. But I would, I root for Lincoln Riley's success. I like Lincoln Riley's background. He's from right up the road from me in the Texas Panhandle. Like, I want him to do well, and I'm always down for good quarterback play. So I'll be interested in USC. Do I think that they will? No, Paul. Do I think there's a chance? Sure. I do think there's a chance.
Well, there's a chance, but it's going to be a shootout deal. You're going to see some high. You're going to see a lot of scoring on both sides, at least at this point. Now, that's not to say that USC, they hire good coaches. They have, and they have good players. I'm sure they'll get a lot of things straightened out. And maybe it was just a first game deal. And maybe if I watch them in the next couple of weeks, I'll tune in and I'll go, oh yeah, they're better. I mean, I'm sure they will get better. But San Jose State did things that they wanted to do to USC. And boy, that'll be different once they get to the Big Ten. Well, that'll be different in the Pac-12, for guys' sakes, when they get to that league as well. So, I'm just not big on them. But obviously, that one of the big games is LSU and Florida State. Both those teams, I believe, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there, and that's going to be a game that's going to have significance with regards to being a contender within their conference and for a national championship. So that's going to be a big game. We've got to make sure that we pay attention to what's going on with LSU and Florida State.
Well, yeah, I mean, that becomes what everybody's, looking at over the weekend. Let's look at the top 25 real quick. Florida, Utah should be pretty good. Utah, a future Big 12 member. So that's one of the premier games. Tennessee and Virginia ought to be okay. Washington's got to play Boise State, Paul. I don't know anything about Boise State this year. I know Washington's expectations are sky high, and Boise State's usually pretty dang good. So that one will be of interest to watch, certainly. Trying to just see now. I mean, North Carolina, South Carolina is pretty good, I think. Clemson's got to go to Duke right out of the gates. That's probably pretty good. Of course, you mentioned the biggest headliner, which becomes LSU and Florida State. I mean, who do you like there? I think LSU is going to steamroll them, Paul, just personally. I think LSU is going to crush them. I'm just not that high on Florida State right now. And in the state of college football, I think that's pretty good. I may end up betting that one. It's in Orlando. It's neutral. Florida State's getting 2.5 points. I kind of like LSU there.
I do too. They're just too talented. And you're right. There's some things about Florida State over the last couple of years that give you pause. I think that might be good. I got to know what the line is though first before I would say
2.5. It's only 2.5.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Well,
neutral.
I think I would take that. I think if I'm LSU,
yeah, I think I would too.
I take it LSU's giving the 2.5.
Yeah, we'll get into some bets throughout the week. We'll have Chelsea Messenger on a little later in the week. All right, we got a hard break here, so we got to take it before we come back. Tell you what's on tap the rest of the day. It's Sports Daily on KFH.
Forever Lawn South Central Kansas has the best reputation in the Midwest for artificial turf projects of all sizes.
All right, that'll do it for us. Thanks for being here, everybody. Congratulations to all of our winners. Jared, John, Bill. We'll give away more prizes tomorrow. Paul, thanks for jumping in here today for Tommy.
Had a lot of fun. It was a great show. Enjoyed it immensely. Thank you so much.
We'll have to. We're not probably going to do it this week, but we'll have picks starting up, I think, next week. So we'll figure out the details on making picks again this year. Paul, did you win that last year?
I believe that's the case. Yes. All
right, you got the Chris Lamb Coaches Show tonight. You got the Royals tonight at 7. Bob and Jeff here locally at 2. Jim Rome follows us. For Paul Savage, Chad Chambers, I'm Jacob Albracht. We'll see you tomorrow.
Sports, lighter news, and great comedy with Bob and Tom Mornings, 97.5 and 1240 KFH, Wichita.